I have the immense pleasure to introduce two of my very good friends, one of my best friends, in fact, Shekinah Hill. Everyone give her your silent round of applause.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here this morning.
And the creative master himself, Josh Bonet.
Hello, everybody.
Silent round of applause. What you may or may not realize is that you are in a Zoom with two of the most brilliant creative minds in Hillsong globally. And it is such an honor to have you both here, Shekinah and Josh. So thank you so much for making time. And to all our attendees, thank you for making time to come and join us. We hope that you can learn something valuable. And I know that I will as well, because these guys are phenomenal. And so what we thought we might do, just to jump in at the start, I just wanted to let you know, as you will have seen on all of our advertising, everyone who attends this class goes in the chance to win a Hillsong College Spirit jersey, which is actually one of my favorite pieces of our merch. And we'll be drawing that at the end of this class, just so you know. So what I thought we might do, just to dive in, I might just ask some few fun questions to get to know Josh and Shek just a little bit more. And I tried to come up with some creative questions, not the like, if you had $20 left, what would you spend it on? I feel like most people's answers are normally like Macca's or something. And so I tried to come up with some more creative questions. I literally Googled questions to ask creatives. And so I'm not sure if this is really going to be amazing, but we will give it a go. Okay. Shekinah, I feel like I might know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What fictional character would you most like to meet?
What fictional character would I most like to meet?
Which is a problem because it's fictional, but just hypothetically.
This is a very controversial question to ask, because you would know the answer, or you would know around about the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, you're recording this. This is strife with controversy. But you know what? I'm a confident person. The fictional character that I would most want to meet would be Albus Dumbledore, 100%. I am a massive Harry Potter fan, and so that we could lose people right here and right now. But I want to meet Dumbledore.
I love that. I'm going to need to go grab that record. I want to meet Dumbledore. All right, Josh, if you can unmute, I have requested it. Or let me make you. Josh, can we hear you?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. What fictional character would you most like to meet? If there can be some from like some Christian fiction, perhaps.
Fictional character. Jeez, I was going to say Whitney, but she's not fictional. That was just to like tick Shekinah off. But
real.
Yeah, I think I would like to have been in the movie The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, and so meet any of them.
Mm-hmm. Great choice. Great choice. Okay, next question. Best COVID watch. Josh, hit us.
For me?
Yeah.
Well, the kids have never watched MasterChef. So I have two daughters. And so last lockdown, not this one, we started the MasterChef journey and we just watched a whole season and they just thought it was fantastic. And so now I get rated on the meals that I cook most nights.
I bet that feels really good.
Yeah.
Sheki, what about you?
Listen, I thoroughly enjoyed watching The Voice. I've actually never properly watched it before. And also with the other part of my job, that almost seems a little bit wild, the fact that I never watched The Voice, but I was into it. Of just like, it was just making my whole vocalist persona come alive. And I watched everything live, and I don't watch anything live, but I watched every single episode live and I loved it.
So good. Shekinah, what's the most ridiculous thing someone's tricked you into believing? Right? How good is that question?
If only I had one of our other best friends, Michelle, here. Oh, this is a bit embarrassing, but you know what? I'll go.
Get vulnerable. We all want it.
Okay, it's totally embarrassing. I was very young and they somewhat logically made it make sense, but we don't have time for the full story. So I'll just have to let you judge me on the partial story. Okay, the most ridiculous thing that someone definitely made me believe was that there was something called a lemon tree, which was the mixture of a lemon and a lime. And so it was kind of that in-between period. And they said it was specifically a lemon tree. Did I believe it? I did. Can I explain myself? There's not enough time, but
not enough time.
Another story for another day.
We'll leave that there. Josh, I have a different question for you. Just because we're running out of time. If you were given a 1-minute ad slot during the Super Bowl, what would you fill it with?
Geez. An ad for the Christmas Spectacular.
And you know what a fantastic segue into That's our class content, Josh.
That wasn't even planned.
But... It wasn't, and I love it. Great, thank you so much for just letting us into a little bit of your worlds. I wonder, Josh, just from the outset, if you could let people know what your job title is, and how long you've worked at Hillsong Church for.
I've worked at Hillsong Church since the 2nd of January 1998. So we're coming up on 24 years in February. Done a variety of things, lots of different departments, and run TV and marketing and all that. But my job at the moment is a creative director or creative producer, actually. And so I'm responsible for ideating and executing a bunch of special moments across church life. So Christmas Spectacular or conference openers or helping with TV shows or shoots or whatever. Shekinah is my boss, and work with Autumn and Cass and a bunch of people. Rachel, putting her on stage singing. Sarah, putting her on stage singing, making them wear weird and wonderful outfits and all the rest of it.
Man, I really hope later on in the class content you've got some examples of what you've put Sarah Funky in Christmas Spec, because I know the people want to see that.
I don't, but I'll try and find it.
Hey, Shekinah, could you give us the same spiel?
Well, I just had to look up the date because Josh made me look up the date. I have been on staff since the 20th of September 2016. So I need to mark that date in my calendar. So I just recently hit my 5 years on staff, which is really cool. I can't remember the rest of the spiel because I wasn't really listening to Josh because I was too busy looking up the date.
What are you responsible for on staff, Gal?
Oh, okay. So I have the best job in the world. I've got a dual role. So I am the vocal pastor here at the Hills campus in Sydney. And then I'm also the creative moments oversight for Australia. Hence Josh's comment that yes, I am technically his boss. And it's good fun. I have the best team in the whole wide world, and they're the most fun to work with. It is never a dull moment in our creative moments department. I can tell you that much.
Love that. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, guys. I have a question for you, Shekinah, specifically. What drew you to creative moments? And creative moments, just for context, everybody, is the department in our church that obviously Josh and Shekinah work for, and Shekinah overseas, but that really just outworks any kind of creative element within our church services, in our conferences. Christmas Spectacular is a big one, things for channel, etc. Like it's a huge thing, but it's anything other than like the preaching and worship, etc. that's a creative, even like communion or Mother's Day and Father's Day, and adding different creative elements into the service. So Shekinah, what drew you to creative moments, and did you have a natural affinity towards creativity before you started?
Well, here's the thing. I feel like I'm going to have all the very interesting answers, and Joshy's the one that's going to hit you with all of like the actual creative wisdom. Because I guess for me, I kind of stumbled into creative moments. It really was the way to keep me in the country, realistically. that's kind of... But it was an extension of my job. We needed to extend my job. And so it was what our leadership felt like I was best suited within our creative team, so that I would actually be able to remain in Sydney and continue to work for Hillsong Church. And so the oversight at the time was willing to give me a go in this area that I had actually never worked in. I had never creative produced a single thing. And then at this point in time, I went from never creative producing anything, never being involved in our creative moments outside from a vocal perspective, to now also being one of our creative producers. And then 2 years later, overseeing the creative team. So what I love about my creative moments journey is I actually think it's been the biggest God journey. It's been how I've seen God show up in my life in letting me know that he is going to, the things that I thought were weaknesses, he's actually going to turn into strengths. Yeah. And so I have seen God at work so much in my life, just with how he's kind of taken me on this creative moments journey of the things that I didn't think I would be good at. He would use me in all these different ways. Because if you would have asked me 2 years ago or 3 years ago, if I would be overseeing the creative moments team, I would have laughed in your face, because I at that point in time would have never creative produced anything. So to now oversee the team, it's actually just like the kindness of God and him just promising that he'll actually guide you on the way. So I know it started the story starts funny, but it was literally sprinkled with God and his goodness the entire time.
I'm going to interrupt there because I think Shekinah is a prime example of someone in the creative area who, even to this day, still sometimes writes herself off in the areas of ideation. Because, when you have your list of strengths and ideation's low, you often
ideation's at my bottom.
Yeah, but actually it's rubbish, because I think any of us can bring ideas to the table, and we just need the right environment to flourish in. And so I've seen Shekinah be fantastic at ideation, fantastic at curating ideas. And I wanted to use that as an encouragement for everyone in the group, that with the right heart, with a heart for the gospel, and with whatever skills you've got, she's a brilliant vocalist and a brilliant team leader and a brilliant creative, but she's chosen to learn the tools that she didn't know, and now she can speak into shoots and all of those sorts of things, and actually is a creative force in her own right, even though she would never say that. And so for all of the rest of you, don't write yourself off. If you've ever sat in a room with a genius, that was someone you thought was a genius creatively, it's very easy. And I do it too. You put yourself on the back foot and you go, I can't ideate in this room. I've got nothing to bring. My ideas suck. What you're actually doing is focusing on yourself instead of the thing we're trying to achieve. And if we push ourselves beyond our limits and we go, what are we here for? We're here to spread the gospel. We're here to make something creative for church, whatever your objective is. I'm a firm believer that everyone can play a part in bringing creativity to church. And to me, Shekinah was already a great creative, but I get cranky at her when I hear her say she's crap at ideation, because she's not. And neither are the rest of you. You might just need a little bit more practice.
I love that, Josh. Thank you for saying that. And I think that was the reason that I directed that question towards Shekinah, because I know a bit of her journey, that she wouldn't have placed herself in that creative space before she actually joined the team. And so I'm so glad you said that, because I really do believe creativity can be like caught and taught, and you don't have to be born with it necessarily. Everyone is creative in some aspect, don't get me wrong, but in terms of actually like coming up and ideating and actually executing and planning, everyone is capable.
I think it's true. I think it's important to remember the difference between talent and skill. And really, there's very few things that are just a natural talent that doesn't require development and experience and discipline and recovering from failure and all the things. And so creativity is actually a skill. It's not, obviously some people are born with a natural creative bent or a natural creative personality, but you can nurture your creativity, you can nurture your ideation, you don't come out of the womb able to operate a camera or drawing or painting or whatever. So, but sometimes in church life, because it's got a spiritual aspect to it, we think, oh, that's the songwriter. They need to sit in a room and wait for God to speak to them, and that's where the song comes from. Well, yes, of course, that's where creativity comes from. But creativity also comes from the discipline of hard work and experience and collaboration and all of those things. And those are all things that you can actually control. And those are things that you can position yourself to get better in. So
drop in that gold, Josh. 100% agree. 100% agree. I wondered, so I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to delve into the world of how do you actually execute or ideate, plan, execute a creative moment that creatively expresses the gospel, because I really would love us to be able to walk away feeling equipped to be able to do that within our church space. But I did just want to briefly touch on, I mean, Hillsong Church, we place so much importance on creativity. And I think that's something that we're known for in a positive way. But at the same sense, there's also probably cynicism that would say, oh, you spend a lot of money on lighting, or you spend a lot of money on conferences in that creative moment. And I just wanted to hear from you. I don't mind who answers, but why do we place such importance on creativity within church services and conferences? Is it a waste of money? I mean, playing devil's advocate. And what does it actually bring? Like, what is, I mean, obviously we're expressing the gospel, but I'm just wanting to like get that question out of the way before we get into you showing us just some of the incredible moments. So Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think firstly on the budget sort of thing, I think budgets are all relative. So when we come to a conference, there's a registration fee that doesn't even cover the cost of producing the conference, to be honest. But if you have, I mean, I'm not going to give all figures because I don't know all the figures.
And you don't need to.
But if you have 20,000 delegates, your budget for making the creativity work and the staging and all of that sort of stuff is going to be vastly different to if you have 100 delegates. So all of our budgets are actually just relative. And so sometimes Shekinah will come to me and go, here you go, you need to produce a creative message for this, for a conference, and your budget, I'll give you this figure, your budget is $200. Now, that might be a lot of money. And the difficulty with talking about budgets is in some church contexts, $200 is a lot of money. Yeah. And in some church contexts, $200 is nothing. That won't even pay to cater for people, 150 people who turn up for rehearsals.
And really quickly, Josh, what I will say, just even on that point, which is good to know, because you guys who are watching are coming from a vast amount of church context. And even within Hillsong Church, there is a big difference even in those numbers, depending on the campus that you're at. So it's not even something that is outside of Hillsong Church. We don't know. No. Even within Hillsong Church, like, it is also a part of my role to help our teams across the 38 locations that we have across Australia to actually help them navigate how they can also pull all of these things off with these relative budgets that they have. So it's definitely not what Josh is talking about, isn't something that we as Hillsong Church don't even experience ourselves. Like, these are even things that we are also always dealing with as well.
Right. Can I jump in and just say, I'm for the sake of time, just a high level, why is the creative expression important?
The creative expression is important because it opens people's hearts, and it does it in a way that worship doesn't, and it does it in a way that preaching doesn't. You can leave an impression on someone in a second that someone takes 35 minutes to preach. So a quick example, when I did my first ever creative opener for Color Conference, I wanted to make sure that people understood that God believed in them. And we couldn't think of a better way. So at the start of a 16-minute extravagant opener, I just wrote it on screen. There is a God in heaven who believes in you. And I worked for 5 months on trying to make sure that everything was going to be great for the women. My focus was putting the heart of God into them through the arts. And it wasn't very creative. I just put text on screen at the start of the opener. The rest of it was amazing. JD wore sequins and the whole deal. But an auditorium of 16,000 women cheered when that came up on screen. And I knew in the first 20 or 30 seconds, we had opened their hearts at the start of the conference so that then the word and the worship could do its work across their lives. And we left them, sending them home different. We've had ladies write to us who've had a leaf fall off a balcony into their lap. And the night before, God had put into a dream, she was ready to give up on her faith. And God had said, I will look after you, and used a leaf motif. And I didn't know that, but God was going to orchestrate that. And so you never know what impression you're going to leave. But I do believe the arts are a powerful tool, and creativity is a powerful tool that leaves people with emblems of message that they remember beyond almost any sermon. And I'm not taking sermons down. I'm saying creativity has a place where you remember your feeling and you remember the visual emblem, and it cements something in your heart. And I think God uses it.
Love that. Thank you, Josh. So what I thought we might do is get into some content. And guys and girls, if you have any questions while Josh is going through this, and Shekinah, if you want to jump in, just pop your questions in the chat and we can ask Josh as we go through the creative process. Thank you for your question, Cheryl. I'll be sure to ask that. So Josh, I thought we might start I know you've brought some examples to share with us, which I'm really excited about. How about we start with one, and you can talk us through, obviously it's about expressing the gospel through a creative presentation. And if you could take us through how you ideated, what was the thought process just on a high level, and then share the example, it'd be amazing.
Okay, so I'm not sure how much we'll get through, but let's talk about the Christmas Spectacular. The Christmas Spectacular has a 25-year history in our church, and it started as a carols night in the park, in a local community park. But even back then, when our church was having services of 500 or 600 people, whatever the figure was, we would draw a crowd of 15,000 in the community because people love to celebrate Christmas. So every church knows that Christmas is an opportunity to bring unsaved friends and family members in the door. And if you do it right, you actually build trust. So my first objective for the Christmas Spectacular is to continue to build trust within our congregation so that they know this is what I can bring my family to. Because not every family member will come to church with you for a Sunday morning or even for Easter. Sometimes they will, but at Christmas time, they'll come and watch a Christmas presentation. So over the years, it's had a musical theatre feel, it's had a variety show feel, it's had a carols feel, it's had whatever feel. But there was one year where I was like, I really want to bring the Christmas story in a fresh way that focuses on the emotion of what the participants in that story think. And my whole thought is, and not sorry to be offensive, but when I don't make the Christmas spec for the church kids, I don't care what the church thinks of it. I care about what the unsaved people think. And therefore the whole thing is geared towards, I try not to use Christianese. I try not to assume that people have read the Bible. I try not to assume any of that. And if you do that, it's amazing how it just changes the way you approach something. You bring an unsaved friend to church and you sit next to them in your church service, and things that you never noticed before, you start to notice about how the MC spot is done, or how the worship is worded, or how the welcome is done. And you start to realize, wow, we've become not insular, that sounds negative, but we could change our language a little bit to make sure that we're open to the unsaved. So this year, I'm going to show you a trailer from 2 or 3 years ago. We decided to make a very cinematic, very different version to take the Christmas story and push it somewhere different. So let me share my screen. Desktop.
I love this so much. Christmases. Oh, look, this is literally on my desk.
All right. Okay. And this is a minute, so hopefully it's all right.
Love it, Josh.
The strength of the Roman Empire is at its peak. The Jewish people struggled under evil King Herod, and yet hold on to hope of the promised Messiah. But God has been silent for 400 years.
A new king born. I will not lose my throne to a child. Find them. Mary!
So you'll have to let me know, did that work okay? Because we didn't get to test that beforehand. Did that work all right? Okay, cool. All right. So, so we approached the story really differently. Obviously, we still had all the wow songs and all that sort of stuff, but that's how we approach Christmas spec. And so I'll use any reference. So I used some King Arthur films as reference and all that sort of stuff, because again, I don't want to offend anyone when I say this, but the Bible's version of Christmas is a bit boring. As in, what I mean is it's quite a journalistic, factual account. But if you actually dig into the story, you're like, oh my gosh, Mary, in the face of everything that would have been in the community, she's an unwed mother. Like, this is scandalous and all that sort of stuff. So that's where we came up with the phrase, peace on earth did not come easily. And we drove it all from there. So, yeah. There you
go. Incredible, Josh. Thank you. And Belle has so kindly said that's one of the best things I've seen for a Christmas program. So I'm excited to see this year's. I wonder if you could talk us through, so that's obviously the trailer, right? Yep. And that's obviously weaved through the Christmas message within that trailer, but then you actually get to, how did you ideate that this is how you wanted to express the gospel message? So I think, like you've mentioned, there's been other ways that you've done it previously that's more theatrical, or like, how do you get to that point?
I think for me, for any piece of creativity, Shekinah and I love clarity. We just love clarity. We like to know what we're supposed to achieve. But I think any creative, get used to having some boundaries and some objectives around you, because it actually opens up somewhere to run, as opposed to, like, I'm no good if you just say to me, just make me a piece of art. I'm like, okay, what's it for? Where's it supposed to go? Why is someone going to use it? What is it supposed to mean? And I know that sounds like really common sense, but the best question I can ever ask someone when they sit down and say, hey, Josh, we'd like you to work on this, is, what do you want the audience to think, feel, or do as a result of being part of this? And that helps me articulate the objective of the piece. So what do you want the audience to think, feel, or do? Helps me articulate the objective of the piece, but in the context of the audience. So I knew I wanted people to climb inside Mary's story, because I thought that would give them an insight into the heart of God. And therefore, when we finally got to the altar call, and what I can report is, because we really worked hard on that story, we saw at the Hills campus, we record salvation decisions by people filling in a card in a Bible. And we saw, for 7 services, we saw no less than 500 salvations per service. And that was the biggest we've ever seen. Now, we can't do an intense cinematic Christmas story every year. You can't be formulaic, but that is literally by chasing down the truth of that Christmas story and doing it in a fresh way. That's what that achieved. Now, what I'll say is, in the process of ideation, that presented its own batch of challenges, because we suddenly had this presentation that was fairly intense feeling. I had to really battle hard to do kids moments. So then we had to get Funny Man Dan in. So the objectives for Christmas spec are: give people a good time, introduce them to the gospel story of Christmas, make sure there's fun moments for kids, make sure the church get to worship, set up an altar call. There's 5 or 6 things that you have to hit. And once you know that, you go, right, I'm looking at the program, we're a bit intense. How can I put some fun in? And just understanding what the show should feel like. Because if I just got lost in my personal artistic expression of, I want to make a King Arthur film that explores Mary and whatever, well, we would have had a very intense 90 minutes. So I had to actually work hard to put fun and frivolity in. Other people came and saw it. They had to speak into it. I was in it. I was King Herod. So I had to make sure, which they would have anyway, but Cass and others came in and they're like, right, there's too much of Herod there. There's too much of that. There's too much of that. And trying to balance the whole show. And so the process of ideation is, here's the spark. Here's what we want to chase. But then you have to corral it all the way along and have others speak into it. Does that answer your question a bit? Or
it does. And what I love hearing is just the bird's eye view, because as you say, like, as creatives, we can latch on to this idea that we so badly want to focus on and make happen. But when you're obviously incredibly experienced, you're looking at the larger picture of, it's Christmas. Yeah, like, it's supposed to be joyful. It's a family show. It's an experience. And while you've chosen to express the gospel message in this particular way, which may be seen as more intense, there are other ways to mitigate that and balance it within the realm of the show.
It's very important in any creative process that your idea, or the idea you've fallen in love with that came from someone else, is never more important than the overall objective. Because the moment you start to elevate that, like, I've had conversations with people over the years, sometimes in college lectures or whatever, and they've said, I've got this idea to do this. This is controversial again, I'm just going to say, I've got this idea to do this, and my senior pastor won't support my idea. What do I do? And I'm like, that's hard, because you might feel like God has spoken to you. I personally try and never lead a pitch with, God has given me this idea, because if he truly has, Shekinah's got nothing to say, because God is above Shekinah. So if I come to Shekinah and go, God has spoken to me and told me this is the idea for the opener, she might be like, well, was it God? So try and never pitch that way, because otherwise you're almost trying to emotionally manipulate the situation. Yeah. That's an aside. But so I've got this idea and my senior pastor won't support it. I try to never get there. I have ideas that I shelve for 10 years until they find the appropriate objective to fulfill. What I need to do is climb inside the heart of my senior pastor and Shekinah and Autumn and Cass and Bobby and whatever the event is, and go, what do they want? And then I get to choose the idea usually that fits that. If they don't like this one, chuck the idea, you get a new one and you put it on. Ideas can come if you're chasing objective. If you're chasing an idea, you lose your focus and you're actually elevating your own personal expression above what the event's trying to be.
What I will say just really quickly to hop on that, because what Josh is speaking about, obviously because of what I get to do, I've actually seen him outwork this because him and I have worked quite closely for many years now. And the amount of ideas that he has brought that I have seen him just put to the side, that then you then see him bring back out to go, we're going to do this year. I've been sitting on this for this many years. And you've actually seen that. Like, it's actually fantastic. And it's having that wisdom, and it's actually having the humility to actually allow God to bring about. If you do think it's a God idea, then let God do the work, which means he will bring that back in another time. But if it is a God idea, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to push for it so hard, especially if it's not naturally coming about. And so I love that Josh talked about putting things aside. I've seen Josh's Pinterest boards. They are insane. And there are some things that he's had on his Pinterest board for years and years and years that we even just started talking about, maybe we'll do it for this. And literally a couple of weeks ago, it just changed. And instead of him going, I thought this was going to be my year, he's just gone, okay, well, maybe we'll do it next year. Like, you actually have to have that spirit of flexibility when it comes to ideation and creating, because it's more about, it's more than just what you want. If you're making it about yourself, you're actually missing the purpose. It's not creating the things that you want. It's actually creating the things that are going to bring people closer to Jesus, which could be your idea, but it could also be somebody else's idea. So it's just kind of making sure that you kind of stash those things away is really wise.
Very good.
Just another comment on there is you actually build trust for yourself and your team when you do that exercise properly, both with budgets, with how you, I mean, this is a big topic, but I always try and think about, how am I looking after the volunteer team? How are we looking after fellow staff members? Am I looking after Rachel with regards to how she looks and feels on stage, so she feels comfortable when she sings? But I don't cater to the diva, but you know,
I'm sure I won't talk about the moo you put me in one year, then I'll leave that.
Yeah, thank you. Are we looking after budgets? Are we building trust so people go, yeah, we can trust working with Shekinah and Josh or Rach or whoever, because they see you actively not elevating your own personal expression above what the objective is. And therefore you actually, in the future, you get more freedom, more opportunities, because you're known and trusted. And so they're like, yeah, no, they'll do the right thing. They'll get the objective across the line, and we trust them to pick the right idea. We just want to know where we're headed. Now, you earn that after a long time, but if that's your goal, you got to be humble and build it the right way. And just, I mean, you know, the other, yeah, just stay focused on the overall objective, exactly what Shekinah was saying.
Very good. Thank you. Hey, I wondered, Josh, we've got about 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
If you could give us an example of expressing the gospel through a different kind of
Sure.
creative moment, just because obviously Christmas speak, like, that is the gospel message. Do you know what I mean? But I think it'd be really interesting just to see an example of how you've woven the gospel message into something that's not as on the nose in terms of what the message is.
Okay, let's whiz through a couple of quick ones.
Yeah.
One is a TV program called What Do You See, which we do with Robert, and we basically wanted to make a preaching program for our channel that is not preaching. I'm going to do a quick one of that. Then we'll zip over to Pure Imagination, which was a color opener, and that's got a few hours in it. I'll show 2 back to back. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it. Is everyone okay? Awesome.
Can we get rid of that guy?
You are. How do you discover your life's purpose? That is what we're about to find out. Life is a quest, a journey of the soul to discover our destiny. Each of us is on a pilgrimage toward God to determine our true identity and purpose. And so this program is also a quest. 12 episodes, 12 different terrains representing the 12 different seasons of our life. The The Bible characters, Abraham, Moses, and Paul, were also required to go on a pilgrimage to complete their God-given task. Their story is our story, your story. It's our responsibility to find that task and complete it. We also have a map to follow, the path of other pilgrims who have gone before us.
Okay, that's that one. And then
That's incredible.
So the goal of that, it's like Robert's Bear Grylls. We do them everywhere. All right, and now we've got a creepy white rabbit. And the purpose of this piece, honestly, was just to open up people's imagination. It doesn't have a single scripture in it. It doesn't have any biblical foundation other than imagine, but it actually ushered in the presence of God in the room because we just focused on imagine. And then Bobby got up and she said, "Wait it beautifully." I was surprised at the feeling of the presence of God in the room. That was what I'd hoped for, but this is quite surprising. Look, it's Rachel. We tried to use the glitter as something that directed attention throughout the program. Stand by clock. I can't see everything, sorry, the shots aren't as good as I'd like, but here comes the glitter.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure
Skip ahead a bit.
Come with me. Come with me. Come with me, and you'll be.
All right, there you go. You want to eat up all the time. So we featured Rachel.
So embarrassing.
Rach specifically asked me to use that example.
Sure.
I was just really hoping, Rachel's gonna hate that I'm about to say this. I was really hoping that it was the version where Rachel's voice cracks really bad.
If we had time, I would pull that up right now. I just don't know where it is.
It was the version where unfortunately Ash's vocal came in at the wrong point, but that's fine.
I had a full-on Tarzan moment, and that's not the point of this this class. But hey, we've got 2 minutes left. And just to wrap up, I think I loved this, like those second examples, Josh, because I think what it really speaks to is your ability to awaken someone's mind and imagination and heart to then receive it. And I think that's really one of the most incredible things I've taken away, is that the arts are so important and can be used in order to do that, to awaken hearts to receive the gospel. And I loved that. So thank you so much for sharing.
I think with regards to preaching as well, I think you can do that within preaching. You can create a musical moment that underscores a particular point, or you can create a beautiful screen image or something. I mean, we live in the Instagram generation, so often when we create for church, we think, what is the one image that someone can take? Not so that we get likes or whatever, that's not what I'm talking about, but what is the one image I can take so that when people share that afterwards, it reinforces that moment for people. Yeah. And so I guess not everyone's going to make a TV show like what I showed with Robert, but you can take the idea of illustrating a sermon and apply that into your services. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show that.
Yeah, no, I love that. Hey guys, thank you so much for making time, Josh and Shekinah. We really appreciate everything that you've taught us and talked us through. And I know this is a culmination of years and years of upskilling and learning. And we really appreciate you sharing all your advice with us. And everyone, thank you for attending our class. We're so grateful that you've joined us on Online Open Day. And I did just want to, before we draw out who's our winner, we do have an application campaign that's running at the moment. So for those of you who perhaps don't win today, you can actually go on the draw to win an Apple Watch if you complete an application for Hillsong College, be that one course or full-time, whatever, by October 1st. And then just to follow that up, if you did have any further questions about how to study with us at Hillsong College, we would love to talk to you further. If you have questions after, obviously, Online Open Day and everything that you've experienced. But I'm just going to put that in the chat. That's the information. If you want to book a phone call with our team or email us, if you've got any further questions, we'd love to chat with you about that. And so let me pop the random generator in. Everything is done randomly, so we can figure out who is our winner today. And the number it comes up with is livemax@gmail.com. You are our winner today. Congratulations. So if you can just DM me with your email address, we'll send you out all the information you need to know, and we can get you that Spirit jersey ASAP. But thanks again, team. We so appreciate you joining us. And Online Open Day is not finished. We have more classes coming up, and we've got chapel. And so if you go to, you can go to your emails. Obviously, you've got the link, but there's a link in the chat if you want to see what other classes are on. And we'll be sending out all the recordings from the day that you can rewatch and pick out some more wisdom. So thanks again, Josh and Shekinah, and everyone else. We'll see you soon.